Hey, what's going on, guys? Inglorious Gun, and we're back with more Marvel Rivals, playing some Thor today. This was actually a pretty cool match. Was not doing super hot initially, but actually had some pretty decent ults throughout the game, which, stylistically, always cool, but it's nice to have a high impact moment, especially when you're playing ranked. But yeah, this is Season 1 Thor, as I've raved on in prior videos. Lightning Rune, or Awakening Rune rather, which is what I'm using right there, is ridiculously powerful. You can melt through healing on squishies dependent. It's very much based on positioning and pressure, which are typically things that you're not going to have throughout your solo queue experience. If you are playing with people, it's far easier to coordinate, right? But I guess my objective early on in this game is to isolate their lower health heroes, primarily their healers. Once we break those down, we can acquiesce the point, and then the rest of their team kind of gets peeled off. I feel like I've kind of a broken record at this point. I feel like most people have an idea of what the progression of a given match is, right, and what your steps to your objective are, but it's always good to reiterate, I guess. It's easy to lose sight of that and then kind of go on autopilot mode and play a bit more passively, where you're still doing what you think is conducive, but you're not actively critically thinking about what your next step is going to be throughout the match, even in instances where you're winning, right? So like right here, okay, cool. They're on a wipe. We got the point. Looks like they're back up a decent amount and everyone's topped off on health. We don't really have to worry about the next push, at least for a couple of meters, I would imagine, as they're regrouping. But yeah, Thor's ult, definitely a lot better with the buff. I personally like it in the event that you have someone that's aerial, like an Iron Man, and if you flank them correctly, you can actually be doing damage to ground level and aerial level as well. So that's definitely super convenient in terms of utility and like power presence as well. So it's been nice to kind of get a little bit more aggressive with his ult use. I still have to work on disengaging a lot more. I definitely get a little overconfident and have a propensity to play aggressive because I really want to secure Awakening Rune kills if I can, just given the damage capacity. But, far often than not, I feel like it's better, especially in my more recent games, just to kind of play passively in the sense that playing for my life, as someone had mentioned in one of my comments before, is probably the most conducive way to contribute to your team. It could be argued that, like, if you're playing a little too selfishly and not maintaining your role or performing in the way you need to, then that potentially could be seen as a flaw. But I think ultimately trying to die less will always lead to better decision making in a lot of cases, or at least understanding what fights you can take and realistically escape from. This was pretty much at that sentence after I secured that kill. I didn't have any expectation of getting out. It would have been nice if my healer had line of sight, but I wasn't aware of like if they were alive or not, and the distance of my team seemed to be pretty far away. But I think as a dive, that was, ultimately a decent trade, all things considered. Didn't really alter the shift too much. But yeah, Thor's jumping in there, and we're just rolling through. We got a friendly Wolverine, and someone rocking that new Adam Warlock skin must have bought their way down, because that is pretty far down the battle pass. That shit is dope, though, I will say. I'm very excited to play more healer, as I already have been. I've been playing a lot of Sue Storm as of late, just because her utility to AoE heal and just kind of group heal, while also she has good damage potential as well. Her ult is just kind of like Cloak and Daggers in the sense where it's my team's like about to fucking shatter, so I'm just gonna throw this shit out and everyone's gonna have a good amount of invulnerability. Essentially like all the best healing ults in the game, right? Like Luna's ult is definitely in the same vein. But it's important to keep in mind, check your scoreboard to see where your other healer's at. If you don't have direct communication with them or signal that you're going to use your ult. Definitely a lot of games where, accidental as it may be, we've had two healer ults go at the same time, which we could have ultimately just used one and then had the other on retainer in case things kind of kicked off. But right here, that was just a fucking mess. We were trying to dive in the back line. I think my issue with tank, and a lot of people that play Vanguard, especially if you're playing dive tank, it's very easy for the enemy team to know that you're in the back line and rotate and turn on you, which having 5 people shoot at you just on a basic level should be an indicator enough that you're going to get melted, especially if you don't have a team that's particularly forthright with their damage output, lack of pressure or presence, as I always mention. And that just creates a lot of instances where you are dying more than you have to. So in that, particular instance, I think it would have been more mindful of me to kind of play it back, because I was hoping my team was going to be coordinated around my move there. In fact, they weren't, but the enemy team was coordinated around my entrance and my dive, and then they suddenly had the advantage of 5-4, right? So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, we're just kind of rolling out the attack round here. This last choke can be pretty contentious, but it's a lot easier to stagger people out here in spite of how close the gap is for the spawn. People definitely get a little overzealous and commit to some kind of crazy ass fucking maneuvers you wouldn't expect, but it's usually an exchange of a lot of ults just at random times. Speaking of benefits though, we did have a Hella on the team, so her being the anchor means that I think any critical hit that she gets, any last hit, me or Loki will get revived if we're actively on the respawn timer. That's honestly huge. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I really put it to much use, though, under the circumstance. We did secure that Awakening Rune kill on, I think that was Cloak, so in that sense, that was pretty big. But Magneto and their Bucky were right around the corner to kind of fuck me up. Healers did have me as soon as we kind of backed up a bit, thankfully. Now we're re-engaging, and this is kind of when things get a little chaotic. Anyone that does have ult, or is close to ult, is trying to build to ult as much as possible. You can see Hella here. Huge potential for a lot of DPS, but because she was at such a high elevation, no one else was contesting, and we were just able to walk that in, get the 3 points. But now we're jumping right into the defense round. If you want to switch, if you feel like if you are playing Vanguard and your team is not doing particularly well, I think any of the tanks have the capacity, if played right, in conjunction with proper team play, to be more than sufficient enough, but obviously counter picks do exist, right? Penny Parker's always going to be a go-to on defense. I would never really recommend her on attack. It's really dependent, though. Some people are fucking sick with her, and you'd be surprised how disruptive hitting nets on people, especially ulting, like Scarlet Witches is. Attack or defense, or if you're playing King of the Hill, it's definitely pretty nice to have a shutdown. Bucky operates in a very similar way, depending if he doesn't get fucking melted in between trying to frag everyone else. If he can grab someone out of their ult and reset them down to that 50 percentile, that definitely could save your team in a pretty dire situation. But yeah, they are diving in pretty hard here, just trying to stay alive after I got revived. Unfortunately, it's very easy to get focused down as Thor. In spite of my best efforts, I definitely, outside of this gameplay, am trying to use my Thor Force regen combo a little bit more in terms of like weaving in a animation cancel of the hammer throw after a base attack, because then you basically get that Thor Force back, and then you can launch right into Awakening Rune. But unfortunately, we were not able to contest on that first point. Plenty of space to work with, though. Just a little frustrating. You always hope that first hold is going to go a little longer than it does, but all it takes is one little mistake, and then someone goes down. A lot of time in between that 10 seconds of respawning and walking back to the point if you don't have a Strange with you or a portal, and it's very easy to get pushed back. A lot of people don't want to fight on card either, which is understandable. I'm not going to fault anyone's apprehension when playing. As I mentioned, I'm trying to play a little bit more cautiously in the sense of maintaining my health at not 0. That's definitely the goal. But also people can not fight near the cart and just allow the enemy team to walk shit in to the point where you might as well just like fucking back all the way up to spawn, because it seems like we're just not giving them any kind of pressure or ground they need to fight for in this sense. But we were respawned here. We were able to pick off a healer with the ult there after the Hella revive, which was pretty nice. This Venom is still out for blood here, about to pop his ult, I believe, which admittedly with his combo can be pretty huge, but again, he was by himself. Both of our healers were present. It's really easy to nullify those moments when the rest of your team is not there to back you up, and kind of like the inverse of a situation I was talking about, right? I'm always talking about not having my team there to back me up when I feel like I'm ultimately overextending and diving, but I can totally see that Venom being in the same kind of mindset. But yeah. Switching back into Awakening Rune here. Just trying to cull out as much damage as I can. Typically, like, my overall goal with Thor, right? DPSs will vary. Their efficacy and their positioning and what kind of output they're looking to do will vary as well. Like, we have, like, a fucking Spider-Man on the enemy team that was doing pretty decent, all things considered, right? So, never want to judge a book by its cover. This revive was incredibly unfortunate for this Mantis, but we ended up getting her to pop her ult, which is pretty huge. She kind of wasted it to save her own skin. Loki was there, but I wouldn't really count its utility, so all in all, a good use of the revive, in spite of not getting a kill or repositioning with my team. But yeah. Thankfully, team was doing a decent enough job to kind of buy me enough time to get back to the front line. It's always a concern when you die, right? Is the domino effect of everything kind of dismantling one kill at a time. But we were able to focus Rocket down. That Groot wall from his team actually kind of fucked him, and that led to our advantage. Be surprised not getting rid of your Groot walls, especially in tighter corridors when you're fighting your team, can be extremely detrimental and backfire on you in spite of your attempt to block damage, right? But yeah, we're just kind of sitting on the ult right now. We just have a little bit of time to kill. I took off the stats again, so unfortunately you don't know how much is realistically left on the timer, but standard defense play all the same. Kind of hovering until they make their next push, and then looking for a good opportunity. We pop ult right here. And yeah, we just land 3 kills. Pick up the 4th right there. Was was pretty keen on getting this ace, but we lost out in the last hit to the Hela. But all the same, pretty clean way to close out the game. And then with that full reset, definitely a long time on the respawn timer, and unfortunately not enough for them to kind of reposition in an adequate way. Our team pushing up to kind of make sure that no one's going to be dive bombing the cart to launch into overtime. I'm kind of hovering him back as well in the event of that happening, but in this kind of scenario, it's really about gauging if they're going to have enough pressure or momentum to kind of get back to the cart in that time. But yeah, as bodies fall, the game is pretty much won, and that's going to do it for this ranked match. It's an unfortunate feeling being on the opposite end, just watching the timer go down, realizing that the game was kind of wrapped 2 or 5 minutes ago. Granted, whatever the issues were structurally that didn't allow you to push the cart and get the points on the board, but alas, that's this payload kind of gameplay for you, especially in the hero shooter dynamic. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the breakdown though. Be having more gameplay here for you soon, and hopefully we'll be in Gold 1 within my next few matches, so looking forward to that. All the same, you guys have a great rest of your day. Appreciate all the viewership as always, and yeah,